Welcome back, everybody. I'm Pastels, Avon Waters, and today I have pastel, soft pastel, not oil pastel. I have soft pastel I'm going to put over oil. Oil on canvas. The oil painting, of course, has to be dry, but I'm going to demo how you can do that. It's a great way to mix media, and it's a unique way that a lot of people may have never heard of or may have never tried, but it's worth the try. If you're liking the content of this channel, please hit the like button. Again, the purpose of my channel is to help you guys learn new techniques, try some adventure. I'll make the mistakes and you guys get to benefit from my mistakes. This is what I'm working on today. This painting was started well over a year ago. But as you can see, it's not done. There's always a danger in doing water lilies. When you've had a master like Claude Monet do water lilies the size of a building, hundreds of them, it becomes difficult to create something that hasn't been done before. After the underpainting in acrylic, then it ended up with oil and finished up with oil sticks on top. So I can go back in here and I can use pastel over this because the oil sticks filled in a lot of the canvas. And once the oil sticks dry, it creates a little bit of a porousness that unlike acrylic painting and underpainting, I a lot of times have to use a clear gesso over the top to get the grit. But I should be able to use pastel right over the top of some of these areas. I kind of like this passage right in here. There's a lot of movement going on there, a lot of subtlety, and that's the rest of it for me is just too tight. I want to try to make this thing a little bit looser. Oil gave me a lot more texture. The canvas was starting to show through. The oil sticks fill some of that. So now I can go back in here and I can use pastel over this. This has so many layers underneath it. Again, not having to put any tooth on here is by adding clear gesso. Besides, it's oil. I couldn't add clear gesso to this even if I wanted to. You can put oils over acrylics, but you can't put acrylics over oils. You can see in here how all these layers that are underneath this pastel, see, I can wipe that right off of there. These layers that are underneath this pastel are really helping, because they're darker than the pastel I'm putting on top, are really helping make this much more interesting. It gets closer to this area that I kind of liked right down in here that had a lot of mark making with the oil sticks. This is a lot deeper purple. I think I'm gonna, because I'm using this lighter violet, red violet in some of these areas of the water and the reflections. I think this deeper purple in some of these deeper greens, yeah, that's working really nice going over the top of that. It really breaks up the sharpness and the edges of that. These lily flowers are all problematic. I'm going to really make these really loose. But this one that's in this 1/3 area down here, this is going to be our center of focus, and you won't see that on this. There's no way, this is a 36 by 36. There's no way that I can finish this thing today, but you're going to see how you can use pastel to go over oils. This was an acrylic and then an oil and then an oil stick. So it's got tons of layers over the course of the year to 18 months I've been working on this. And I think it's going to fix this, I think. Yeah, that dark violet's working really nice over those greens. It keeps it green, but it's got that violet tint and it's melding some of these other parts together. If I was a better oil stick painter, I could probably do this with oil sticks, but I love pastel. What can I say? I gave up oil painting for pastel 11, 12 years ago.
feels like 15 years. This technique of having having a color underneath these, having a color underneath like this deep green and some of these green violets, blue greens, and then putting a warm violet over it, that is very similar technique if this thing was done in only pastel. And I got to the point that you saw this thing with those colors, and I had texture, or I had tooth left in my substrate. It's the same principle. It's just, you may not have known you could go over oil painting, and you can turn some of those oil paintings, you could use your expression that you love if you're a dual artist with multiple mediums. This is a way to mix these mediums and really come up with unique results that you can get it with pastel, you can get it with oil, but I just love the combination of the two of these things. This is a really gray green, and I'm thinking about putting that in some of these highlight areas to help marry some of those darker greens with what's going on here. Very, very sparse use of this. It's a real strong color with all these others. This is a grayed down blue-green, and because I've got blue-greens in here, and not very much pressure at all over some of these blue-greens, it breaks up some of those larger mark making, and it's a little greener than the blue-green that's on there. So it's making some really nice textures over this canvas. One of my complaints I had with this was that these lily pads were just like almost pasted on here. While I had these textures going on here and this mark making going on over in some of these areas, they just kind of they weren't alive. I'm trying to, with this, see if I can get some of that life that I'm looking for in here. Make them less pasted on. I rarely use Blue Earth pastels. They're just too soft. And especially with this much texture. If I pressed hard on this, this thing would just disintegrate. But I'm just skimming over these, and this is going to be a great color in some of these dark areas. Just a dot here or there. I'm almost like Syrah doing pointillism in some of these places with this thing. I could just go like this, and it would just chew this thing down to nothing. That's how soft Blue Earth is, if you ever wondered. Okay, you can see from the, maybe you've got to rewind, but you can see that I've broken up some of these spaces here, and I've broken up the color to try to integrate these lily pads more. Here's still some that are not integrated yet. I've got this Sennelier egg, and I'm going to come up against some of these things. This is kind of a gray violet, and I'm going to try, because these lily pads are in the foreground, they're going to have a little more saturation, whatever color I decide to break these bigger spaces up with. Here you can see I've used violets and red violets, so I'll probably try to find some versions of that and let some of this brighter green show through because it's closer to the foreground. But in order for subtle, brighter greens to show through rather than these I think are too saturated, they're not the right green. By putting this grayed blue-violet around some of these lily pads, I am creating a contrast. So I can come in here with a little duller green with my pastels, and this blue-gray violet around some of these is going to help create a contrast with a subtler green rather than have to rely on a bright green. This area here has a lot of saturation with these blues, violets, and red violets. And I drag that over there and it kills some of that saturation. but it keeps some of that texture and some of the color bleeding through. The same here with these magentas. Now it looks a little muddy, but I'm going to go back in here with some of the greens that should contrast well with that. Some greens and violets. We put this color down in here somewhere. We've got to just get a few touches in other places so we don't have isolated colors. Now, because red and green are opposites, by putting this magenta also around some of the edges of these greens that will be here, it will help create that contrast too. I've got to be very sparing with this because this magenta is a very powerful color and easily start to make this thing look spotty. I'm sure there's more of this needed, but for now, that's as far as I want to take this magenta. Here's oil magenta across here. So I'm going to see if I can break that up with some of this skips and jumps that this pastel magenta makes. Same here. There's some oil magenta. Get that green in there and I can cover some of those areas. All right, this is what I'm talking about. I have a blue earth. It is a very dark value, but I'm not pressing hard. I'm letting some of that brighter green, that more permanent green from the oil stick show through, but I am able to dull this down and not make it look so bright. And at the same time, it's going to help integrate. It's going to help integrate these kind of plastic lily pads into the painting more. This is where that maroon oil stick was a little thick. I like that a whole lot better. It's less of a sharp edge. Then here's where that oil stick was, and if I put this dark green over this lily pad, I can break some of that up, and these things just don't look like little discs sitting on the water. It's integrating the mark making that I liked over here into the rest of the painting. This is by no ways done, but I think you've gotten a good idea of how to mix oil and pastel and some of the advantages. That if you're an oil painter and a pastelist, there's no reason you can't use both. And in this case, I think it might save this painting eventually. We'll see. I can still ruin it. Hey, we've all done that, hadn't we? All right. Probably not done yet, but this is closer to the exposure that is probably more accurate color rendition. But you can see the little peaks of oil stick and acrylic and all those layers from the 16, 18 months prior to this have allowed that pastel to create a lot more surface interest. And close up it gets a little spotty, but as you pull this thing away, it is a little better picture than what it was. Probably a little more work to be done, but it's getting closer to being finished. This is what I was talking about with this. This is the conjunction of the thirds on the lower right hand side of this canvas, and that has a lot more detail in it than these up in here. You can see these, I've knocked the color down, I've gone a couple of values a little lower so that they're not as, they still draw attention, but they're not the center of attention. They'll move the eye either to or from the center of attention. So until next time, folks, I'll have something else for you. In the meantime, keep painting. And if you like this channel, you're a subscriber already, then hit the like button. That certainly helps. Helps the algorithm. And some of you that can are in a position, you want to help me out a little bit with some of these supplies and things, down in the description is the Buy Me a Coffee. So take care, everybody. Till next time. Bye-bye.